pandemic, frankly, has been, it's almost like God send me a sign, because how many people have said, is God have a hand in this? Like, where is God in this plague? Because not to blame God, but for anyone who's a believer, it's hard to ignore God with something that has affected the entire earth.
It's so funny you said that. I went at the beginning of this, I thought I was doing okay. And I was like the rock in our house, like just trying.
Not this podcast. He's talking about COVID.
But COVID, yeah. COVID.
Just to be sure.
I was, I think I was furloughed from work in March. And I went a full month being like really good about everything in my house. And eventually I developed like some real severe anxiety to the point where I actually went to a doctor and like had to try to get things straightened out. And he said to me, and this is like a doctor, this I think would be the difference between a doctor in Israel and a doctor in the States. And you can tell me what you think about this. But he looked at me, and I really love my doctor. I've been going to him for years and years and years. And he's like, look, I can prescribe some things to you that'll make you chemically, feel better, serotonin type stuff in the brain and Lexapro, whatever it was. Or, you have to try to find some order in this universe. You have to try to find something to hold on to. You have to try to find a higher power. And the reason that I don't have and he's saying like and the reason that I don't, have a problem with this is that I'm, because of my belief in a higher power, because of my belief in call it God, call it Buddha. He wasn't like trying to evangelize towards something. He was just saying, because of this, I don't have what you have right now, because I felt, I went through a crisis of faith earlier in my life. I felt a physical click where something kind of, got put together when I realized that there was something bigger than me in the universe. And I gave up the desire to be in control. And I know now that I don't have to be in control of this, and that I have faith that things will be okay. And all at once I was confronted by this, okay, holy shit, what do I do with this now? On the one hand, he's making a lot of sense. On the other hand, is this appropriate that I'm having a conversation, about this with my doctor? Do I need to get a new doctor? Do I need a new doctor now because he's not going to treat me because he thinks I need to go to shul? Like, what's the situation going on? And I'm sure that like an American doctor would never
it's
have
an
this
only in Israel moment for sure.
Like,
can I just say something about that? First of all, I so appreciate that your candor, and so many of us are not being as honest about our dips and plunges during this time. But it's that you are literally anticipating half of the conversations I've had with rabbis that's what they're saying about this is forcing us to confront our lack of control. And particularly for New Yorkers, but for any Jews who like all we've been taught is kind of agency and, and enterprise and success and achievement and control. And this is not just the antithesis of that, but it is, I think what they've said to me that's challenging to me is that whatever happens to you, and I could be sick and someone I love could be sick, you will find a different path if you have faith through it. That if you're someone who confronts the hardest thing with a belief in some higher power, it's not that you abdicate, but that you are going to have a very different peace and experience. And that to me has kind of changed.
It's also very difficult, isn't it? Because you hear your doctor say this on the one hand, and then again, it's bizarre coming from a doctor that that's what he's prescribing. And on the other hand, it's like, okay, now you're.
I sometimes get medical advice from my rabbi.
Yeah, okay, maybe that's even weirder. But like, okay, now you're prescribing God to me, but it's not like I can just go take the God pill. It's like you have to believe in it, which means that you have to believe in it. Like, I don't know, like you can't get on that path. It's like I could go put myself in synagogue 3 times a day from here until 50 years from now. If you don't believe, you don't believe.
Or you could read a book on philosophy.
Or you could read whatever you do. Like it's like saying to me, okay, I'm going to tell you, Benny, that the cure to your ailment is that you have to accept Islam. You have to become a Muslim.
But that's not what he's saying. He's saying you need to realize that not everything is in your.
I'm not talking about what he said.
Not everything is in your control.
For me, to be prescribed the medicine of give up control and find belief in something higher than yourself, whatever that might be, you can seek. You can go out there and go on a journey to try to find that for you. But if you don't find it, or to say this another way, if you don't have that moment where it clicks for you, it doesn't click for you.
But you got to try.
You can't fake it. It has to be real in order to work.
It has to be real, but even that act of trying.
Try.
It's a journey.
Absolutely
it's not
try.
an instant thing.
But it's not just as easy as saying, okay, I'm going to go home now, and my doctor said that I should believe in this. And
but it's funny because your problem, though, seemed to be psychosomatic more than anything.
Perhaps.
But I would just say, Ben, my only armchair addition to this is that I think one of the things that he was doing was asking you to even consider, not to necessarily take the God pill, but to maybe open your mind to a different way of even thinking about this. And that, I think, is hard enough to do. Like, that's why what your story is something I might want to use at some point with your permission, because I feel like that's where we get pushed in a way that, we could have already decided is just an impossibility for us. And I might be in that camp, like, as much as I try to change my thinking, but I think it's the kind of challenge that is missing a lot.
And it's definitely very, very true that this is the first crisis that we as a, modern current world are facing, where it really, especially for the Jewish community, it puts us into a place where it's almost like a crisis of faith, because we've never really had to face, at least in my lifetime, some sort of an existential threat like, Jews in the Holocaust had to deal with.
It's not people an existential threat. Come on.
Existential might have been a very, very difficult.
Sorry, say that again.
How is it not existential when it's life and death?
It's not life and death.
Well, for you, it's not.
Of course, for me,
but it could be. You could get sick tomorrow and be totally screwed because you happen to be one of those people that gets it really bad.
It's disruptive. It's not the Holocaust. It's not.
Yes, no, it's not the Holocaust. When I say existential, I don't mean that humanity is going to cease to exist. I mean, like, you have a very very, very powerful sense of uncertainty that everything is going to be okay for you. And that's something that, like Abby said, when you go on this trajectory of growing up as a Jew in the States, at least for me, in the 90s, it was, you're going to be, you have choices, you have options in front of you, and the world is growing. It's not contracting. And now we're in this place where it seems like things are going in the opposite direction. And that puts you into a place where you have to confront some serious questions about the nature of reality.
And I would also just say it challenges the ideas that I think we hear a lot about, like B'Tselem Elohim, right? We're all made in the image of God. Right. That is almost to the point where it's on a Hallmark card for me. Like, I almost don't hear it when I hear it. But this pandemic has changed that, because there is this sense, because we are connected, in a way that I don't think I fully fathomed until now. The idea that we can not just help each other by wearing masks as we interact with strangers, but that we could actually make each other sick. I mean, to think about the power of interconnection. It's not just like we travel and we're connected on the internet. It's that someone from another country can come and visit New York and has an obligation to me, and I have an obligation also to someone I see who might be in a population I don't pay enough attention to, the elderly, who is now, it is existential for them in a different way. I mean, there's just a sense of like, are we going to live these values with people we don't know? Not just your family. Like, it's asking that of a certain kind of humanity with millions of people who are affected. I think that's hard.